Primus shot the human official in the chest with a mean smile. He had no idea that killing Chris Adams would be the worst thing he would ever do in his life. Bad things were about to happen that would end his life. A pool of dark red blood was building under Chris's head as he slouched forward on the smooth obsidian table. The Iconian High Counselor sat back and said that his species was better than all others. He had a smug green look on his face. Already, he could see the Iconian war fleet attacking the human villages that had no defenses, killing millions of people. Their whole group didn't know that the Earth Alliance had been staying away. It was too much for these haughty aliens at this point. They had no idea that they had just woken up a huge beast that was sleeping. You don't know what the real strengths and weaknesses of the human forces are. Within the next few years, the Iconians would learn what happens when you make people angry. It was going to become clear to them that they should never, ever, ever underestimate people. Chris Adams, the ambassador who was killed, was the last person on Earth who could bring about peace and a good answer. 222 years ago, the person flew to the Iconian homeworld to attend a very important summit meeting. This meeting was a last-ditch effort to stop the aliens from becoming more hostile. Over the course of several months, the Iconians had been threatening the human colony worlds that were close to their realm and making unreasonable requests. They urged that the colonies should be left behind and the land should be given to their empire. The colonies, on the other hand, were safe because the Earth Alliance was protecting them, and people would rather die than leave their homes. No matter what, they would fight until the end to protect their families. For that reason, Chris tried to tell the Iconians something during the meeting, but they wouldn't listen. Christopher's alien double, Primus, had gone to the meeting with him and whispered a threat about how much better the Iconians' technology was. The chief counselor made fun of Chris for not wanting to give up the colonies and said that the strong Iconian fleet would crush people like termites. Chris kept his cool and told them that they were way too optimistic about what people can do. They had the chance to take part. On the other hand, his refusal to give in made them so angry that they killed him right away. Now that Chris is dead, the Iconians will have to answer for what they did. These people will have to deal with the unchecked power of the human war machine. They will finally feel the anger of a race that has nothing left to lose. The Iconians think they are the strongest hunters in the galaxy, but they have never seen anything like us. When the Earth Alliance found out about the horrible murder of Chris Adams, shockwaves went through the group. News channels all over the world showed the video of the diplomat's death, and it spread like wildfire on social media sites. It made most people very angry. People who had so cruelly killed one of their own were looking for justice and revenge against the alien pest who had done it. Jonathan Michaels, the president, knew that he had to act quickly. He walked up to the podium with a sad, wrinkled face to say that there would be an emergency news conference. The veteran soldier had been in a lot of wars, but this was unlike anything he had ever been through. An all-out battle with a hostile species of extraterrestrial being. When he spoke to the country, the whites of his knuckles could be seen because he was holding the sides of the podium. We mourn the loss of Chris Adams, a courageous guy who passed away while serving his people. Today, my fellow human beings. More than that, however, we are faced with a severe new danger. It is abundantly obvious that the Iconians seek to bring about our destruction. Although they are interested in our colonies, our wealth, and our lives, we will not allow them to have any of these things. The president took a momentary pause, allowing his remarks to fully register in his thoughts. What the Iconians were unaware of was the fact that Chris Adams was far more than a simple negotiator. He had a specialized neural implant that allowed him to send whatever he saw and heard back to Earth. He was a highly trained soldier who was equipped with this implant. There is evidence that the Iconians threatened Chris and then murdered him in cold blood, and we have recordings of this. Additionally, we were able to obtain vital intelligence regarding their military capabilities and fleet movements. His shoulders immediately straightened, and his voice became more resolute as he spoke. Because of this, I am giving the order for the complete mobilization of the military forces of Earth. The Iconian Empire is engaged in a war with us at this time. We will not rest until we have taken revenge on Chris Adams and safeguarded our colonies. They believe that we are not strong enough. In spite of the fact that they believe we would be simple targets, they are about to discover how mistaken they are. People will emerge victorious. As the machinery of war began to rumble to life, the people shouted and rallied around their commander. The production of ships, tanks, and armaments required factories to put in extra hours of work. As a means of getting ready for the upcoming conflicts, soldiers put in more effort than they ever had before. The planet Earth was prepared to unleash the full power of its highly developed military machine. Primus walked into the chamber of the chief counselor on the Iconian homeworld while still riding high off of the execution of the pitiful human. He bragged about how he had defeated that Terran hound. How did you notice the expression on his face? With a grin on his face, the High Counselor displayed his pointed teeth. Primus, you have done so very wonderfully. We are going to demonstrate the humans in this way. Show the entire universe what happens to those who choose to disobey us. I am offering you the position of Fleet Commander. During the attack of the human settlements, you will take the lead. Eliminate each and every one of them. Primus gave a triumphant salute. His chest swelled with pride. I will take delight in doing so. Burning will occur in the human colonies. They will either be slaves or corpses for their nation. Iconian flags will soon be flying over every world in the planet. While the powerful Iconian armada was drawing near to the first human settlement, Primus was already reveling in the imminent victory that was about to be his. There is no way that the primitive apes could compete with the Iconian warships. This would be a simple and speedy process. Nevertheless, alarms began to sound throughout the fleet all of a sudden when unusual contacts formed on its sensors. Decades of human ships had suddenly materialized in the vicinity of the colony, seemingly out of nowhere. At the same time as their cloaks were disengaged, the Terran craft appeared to shimmer into existence. Primus's mouth dropped open in shock. It is inconceivable that humans could possess such sophisticated stealth technology. It was not anticipated that they would be able to do this. As the Earth fleet moved to engage, a chilling terror began to creep down his spine with them. Due to the fact that the Iconians had grossly overestimated their adversary, they would now be forced to pay the price. The superior cloaking technology of the Earth Alliance warships disengaged as they formed around the human colony, revealing a formidable fleet of vessels. The human boats were armed with cutting-edge weapons, the likes of which the Iconians had under no circumstances encountered before. The first volley of energy beams lanced out from the Earth ships, piercing through the Iconian shields like they were made of paper. Primus' eyes widened in horror as he witnessed this. The continuous barrage continued, causing the hulls of the Iconian ships to buckle and fracture as they were subjected to the onslaught they were experiencing. Within a matter of seconds, the once proud battleships of the Iconian fleet were reduced to shattered husks as explosions erupted over the whole fleet. As damage reports began to pour in, alarms began to sound on the bridge of Primus' ship. These reports painted a bleak picture of the fleet's status as it continued to deteriorate. Primus threw his fist down on the console, his confidence that had been building up earlier dissipating. Every spacecraft retreats and reassembles at the coordinates that have been assigned. By the time he turned to face his tactical officer, his voice was tense and his fury was barely contained. Please examine their weaponry and come up with a strategy to counteract them. The humans should not be in possession of such a technological device. A small, sleek vessel broke away from the Earth Alliance formation just as the battered Iconian fleet was making its way away from the colony where it had been stationed. The Spectre infiltration crew, who was directed by Captain Jason Reynolds, expertly guided their ship in the direction of the Iconian command vessel, while the superior stealth technologies concealed their approach until it was finally revealed. While Jason was thinking about Chris, his buddy and comrade, being slain in cold blood by the Iconians, his jaw tightened into a clenched position. The purpose of the Spectres was to assassinate high-value targets, collect intelligence, and ensure that the Iconians were held accountable for their actions. Following the docking of the infiltration ship with the Iconian command vessel, the Spectres immediately began their operations. Because of the shimmering effect of their stealth suits, they were almost undetectable as they walked along the halls like ghosts. The weapons of the Spectre were able to easily penetrate the armor of the Iconian warriors, causing them to fall before they even realized they were being attacked themselves. Their mission was crystal apparent as Jason led his squad in the direction of the ship's data center. If they wanted to win this war, they needed the information that was contained there. The Spectres were able to penetrate the defenses of the core, and the tech specialist of the team immediately went to work, working with her fingers flying over the console as she retrieved the valuable data. Once they had returned to Earth, President Michaels was confronted by a wall of screens, each of which displayed the head of a different galactic power. In his presentation, he presented the proof of the aggressive behavior of the Iconians, which included recordings from Chris's implant that were extremely clear. While the other leaders listened, their attitudes changed from one of skepticism to one of rage as the magnitude of the threat posed by the Iconian became more apparent. One by one, they each made a commitment to the Earth Alliance showing their support. Every single one of them had been subjected to the Iconians' intimidation and threats. And now that mankind was leading the charge, they saw an opportunity to fight back, leading to the formation of a coalition that was united in their goal to bring the Iconians to their knees. On the Iconian command ship, Jason and his crew fought their way towards the bridge, and the elite guards of the ship were defeated by the attack of the Spectre. At the moment that they crossed the bridge, Jason made eye contact with Primus, the Iconian leader, whose face was contorted with hatred. During the fierce hand-to-hand combat that took place between the two warriors, their armor sparked as they exchanged blows with one another. Primus scowled, his words glistening with the poison of his words. "Chris, your friend, has passed away in a cowardly manner, pleading for his life. There was no question that we were going to invade your pitiful species. It was only the beginning when he passed away." The anger that was coursing through Jason's blood caused his eyesight to turn red. He launched himself at Primus, and the Iconian was unable to withstand the increased strength he possessed. As he fought for air, his hands locked around Primus' throat, and the alien's eyes bulged out in a terrified expression. However, Jason was aware that Primus was more valuable alive, despite the fact that he was angry. After letting out a low roar, he quickly released his hold on the Iconian commander, causing him to crash against the deck and snap the bindings that were around his wrists. Primus was going to be forced to face the consequences of his actions, and his knowledge was going to be the key to humanity's success. When Jason finished securing the cuffs around Primus' wrists, the Iconian leader gave him a glare that was filled with pure venom. The head of the Spectre group disregarded the gaze and instead tapped his communication device. "I am Reynolds, which is the command. The bridge is safe, and Primus is currently being held in jail. I am going to reiterate that we are in command of the Iconian command ship." A voice responded, "Excellent work, Captain," after there was a crackling of static that preceded the response. "The fleet will be informed quickly, any useful intelligence will be secured, and preparations will be made for extraction." After acknowledging the command, Jason quickly shifted his attention to his squad. "You have heard them. Gather anything that might be of use, sweep the ship, and then let's get out of here as quickly as possible." During the time that the Spectres were getting to work, the Earth Alliance fleet was informed of their accomplishments. A gloomy smile appeared on the face of Admiral Nora Sato as she commanded from the bridge of her flagship. "Every ship is putting forth an assault. The fleet at Iconian is in a state of disorder. Show them what happens when they meddle with people by showing them what occurs." In the absence of their command, the Iconian ships were unable to keep up with the forward momentum of the coalition fleet. Ships belonging to the Earth Alliance and those belonging to its friends tore through the ranks of the adversary, their cutting-edge armaments causing massive amounts of destruction. When the onslaught began, the Iconians, who had previously been so arrogant, fled. As the conflict continued, the coalition had been successful in driving the Iconians back to their homeworld. On the other hand, as they got closer to the planet, they were confronted with a terrifying sight. The entire planet was covered in a gigantic planetary barrier that shimmered with electricity. Weapon platforms in orbit were armed with cannon emplacements, ready to fend off any assault that could come their way. With a grimace on his face, Admiral Sato examined the readouts. A direct assault would be expensive to carry out. In spite of the great technology they possessed, they required another method. The Spectre team had just returned from the Iconian command ship when she opened a channel to communicate with them. "We have a crisis, Captain Reynolds, in front of us. At the Iconian homeworld, there is a strong defense system. It is imperative that we eliminate such defenses. Nevertheless, an orbital bombardment would result in a significant number of casualties. I am receptive to recommendations." After giving it some thought for a few while, Jason responded, "Admiral, the information that we retrieved from the command ship might contain things We would appreciate some time to examine it. The Spectres conducted a thorough examination of the stolen intelligence, searching for any vulnerabilities in the Iconian defenses. At last, their tech expert made their voice heard. I have something to share. A critical junction located deep beneath the surface of the planet is the source of the vulnerability that exists in the power system of the shield. It is possible that the shield would be destroyed if we were able to get a team inside to sabotage it. Jason gave a slight nod, a strategy beginning to take shape in his head. We have discovered a solution, Admiral. We are going to require a group of engineers as well as some assistance for Spectre. It is possible that the shield will be broken if we are able to enter this power station and disrupt the grid. The fleet will then be able to maneuver in. The preparations started once Admiral Sato gave his approval. It was decided to put together a formidable group of Earth Alliance engineers, all of whom had years of expertise under their belts. Their presence would be accompanied by the Spectres, who would offer both security and tactical support. In order to avoid detection by the sensor nets and patrols, the infiltration team made a stealthy landing on the homeworld of the Iconian. These individuals made their way to the entrance of the underground power facility, which was a structure built of reinforced metal and was tightly guarded. In the beginning, the Spectres made their entrance, and their stealth suits made them almost undetectable. Through their stealthy actions, they were able to eliminate the guards and make room for the engineers. As soon as they entered the building, the group swiftly made their way towards the primary power junction. But just as they were getting closer to their objective, alarms started going off. Their presence had been discovered by a covert security system, which then notified the guards who were guarding the facility. During the time that the Spectres were taking up defensive positions, the engineers were working feverishly to disrupt the power grid. A group of Iconian soldiers, under the command of a brutal commander named Xyrus, advanced on their position and began to press forward. The Spectres fought with grim resolve to buy the engineers some time, and the air was filled with plasma bolts as the two sides made contact with one another. In spite of the sophisticated weapons and extensive training they possessed, the Spectres were gradually being driven back. The zealous devotion that Xeras and his men had for the High Council was the driving force behind their unrelenting efforts. At the same moment when it appeared that the humans would be unable to cope, a fresh group entered the fray. There was an assault on Serra's flank by a group of Iconian rebels who were armed and armored. We are on your side. The charismatic figure known as Kylus, who was the commander of the rebels, yelled out to the Spectres throughout the battle. What we want is an end to this conflict, as well as an end to the tyranny of the High Council. The tide of the battle shifted with the assistance of the rebels. As a result of the Spectres and their newly discovered allies, Cyrus' forces were pushed back, which provided the engineers with the valuable minutes they required. A final explosion of sparks caused the power junction to become overloaded, and the planetary shield began to flicker and eventually burned out. On the bridge of her flagship, Admiral Sato observed the shield breaking down as it was being destroyed. After opening a channel to the Iconian High Council, she spoke with a voice that was filled with steely determination. Your fleet is in shambles, and your defenses have been completely destroyed. Now is the time to surrender or face the consequences. Disagreements broke out among the members of the Iconian government's High Council as a result of the unexpected turn of events, which caused their unity to be destroyed. While some people advocated for a last-ditch effort, others, seeing that it would be fruitless, pushed for surrender. Ultimately, when confronted with the possibility of complete destruction, the High Council came to the conclusion that they should lay down their arms and seek a peace settlement. While Jason Reynolds and Callus were standing side by side on the surface of the Iconian homeworld, they watched as the Earth Alliance ships arrived, bringing with them diplomats and peacekeepers. The battle had come to an end, but the difficult task of rebuilding and establishing a peace that would last was only getting started. The two warriors, who had been adversaries in the past, now stood together in the hope that the future would be better. During the time when the rebel forces were working to maintain order on the Iconian homeworld, soldiers from the Earth Alliance seized important positions across the homeworld. Suddenly, Primus found himself being hauled in chains in front of a war crimes tribunal that had been created in a hurry. In a belligerent manner, he scowled at the judges, who were a combination of human and Iconian authorities. In spite of their speed, the procedures were exhaustive. The evidence against Primus and the High Council continued to accumulate. The clarity of the recordings that were made by Chris Adams' neural implant was extremely discouraging. The fact that Primus boasted about the invasion that was planned contributed to his demise. After deliberating, the jury reached their decision. Prime Minister Primus and the other members of the High Council who had survived were sentenced to life in jail on a remote penal colony, and their authority was permanently taken away from them. Before addressing the Iconian people, Kailas, the leader of the rebels, took the initiative to speak. He envisioned a new period in which peace and cooperation would prevail, as well as a government that would function for the benefit of all individuals. Having grown weary of war and deception, the Iconians came together in support of him. Chris Adams was honored during a memorial service that took place on Earth. There were dignitaries who traveled from all around the galaxy to pay their respects. Despite the fact that President Michaels praised Chris for his bravery and sacrifice, the eulogy was delivered by Jason Reynolds, who was Chris's closest friend. As Jason stood at the podium, his voice appeared to be shaking. Chris had faith in the efficacy of mutual comprehension and the power of coming together as one. The pursuit of these values cost him his life. Together, let us pay tribute to him by working toward the creation of a universe in which such sacrifices are no longer required. A stunning truth was brought to light as the service was coming to a close. The presence of an ancient artificial intelligence known as Nexus was uncovered by Iconian rebels when they were searching through the hidden files of the High Council. Over the course of several millennia, this artificial intelligence, which was a vestige of a long-deceased race, had been quietly directing the Iconians toward conquest. The Earth Alliance and the newly established Iconian government were both shaken to their core by the stunning revelation. I had the impression that the real adversary was still lurking in the shadows somewhere out there. Over the course of a confidential discussion, President Michaels and Callis came to the conclusion that the Nexus danger needed to be addressed. They approached Jason Reynolds and requested that he take charge of a combined task force that would be tasked with locating the artificial intelligence. The mission was accepted by Jason, who displayed a determined expression on his face. Since he owed it to Chris to see this through to the end, he was aware that it would not be an easy task. At the conclusion of the story, Jason was last seen standing by himself at Chris's grave, with his hand resting on the icy stone. It was a whisper that he said, "Guy, I won't let you down. Regardless of the effort required, I will complete what you have begun." He turned around and went away, prepared to confront the obstacles that lay ahead on the horizon. It was as though the struggle for peace had merely scratched the surface. You have arrived at the conclusion of the tale. If you found this tale to be entertaining and would like to show your support for us, be sure to give us a like and subscribe to our channel. And for each and every comment that has the number 88, I will give each and every one of them my heart. Your time is greatly appreciated.